Hello, everybody. This is Kaimar, and there's some interesting news today. So, the old school Let's Player ProtonJon has come out as trans, and this is a bit of a shock to anybody who wasn't paying attention, that being me in this case, actually. But it's kind of interesting. This guy has been around the block. He's been around for a long time. He started his channel in 2007, so nearly 20 years he's been active online. And he was like one of the first YouTube Let's Players. And he was friends with Chuga Conroy and Nintendo Capri Sun, and they ran the Runaway Guys channel together. And I was a fan of Chuga Conroy and Nintendo Capri Sun, but I never really cared for ProtonJon. And honestly, he's not even really much of a Let's Player. Most of his career he's been doing streams. But yeah, recently he's come out as trans. He had this big part of his life. Those live streams basically just all him talking about his transition or whatever. So this is what he looked like 2 years ago before he started transitioning. And this is what he looks like now. Hope it was worth it, man. Man, POV, you're a 5-year-old girl in a woman's changing room at the pool. But anyways, though, I'm not exactly sure where to start for this. I guess we'll just start. So this guy is actually married, which, you know, interesting. He's married to this other chick, well, this other Let's Player girl, Luca Jin. And she's, you know, fairly well known, 200k subscribers, ain't too shabby. And this came as a shock. I have not been following this sphere for a long while. But it turns out that she is also a freaking VTuber e-thought who does any NSFW audio, like NSFW ASMR, and she even has a freaking fansly. So this guy is like, at the very least, an iDubbbz tier cuck. And it goes even further. There's rumors that she's been cheating on him at conventions and stuff. So this guy might just be like a full-blown cuck. Who knows, right? And while on the surface, at least, she seems fairly supportive, you know, of her new wife, I guess, there may just be trouble in paradise. As you can see here, hey, everyone's still riding the high from tonight, but I want to talk about something I didn't get into during the stream. Risa's side of things, she's been in my corner throughout this entire thing, but it's been challenging for her. Being in the closet and not out to many put her in a position where she was unable to talk to anyone about it and her feelings for years. Been on her own journey. While I've been on mine, we want to be honest with everyone. I saw people putting labels on her that don't fit who she is. She's cis-het, so please give her some grace, because like any life-changing event, there's an set of challenges. Yeah, so basically we're working together, all the love and grace we have. So basically what he's saying, you can read into this a lot. And what I'll glean from it is that while she's supportive on the surface, her heart isn't really there, you know? And really, why should it be? You know, she married a man. She didn't marry a wannabe woman. So, and besides, it's very common for divorces to happen when one side troons out. I don't really have a reason to believe that this will be any different. So you know, this is in addition to Luca Jin literally just being an e-thought. I mean, divorce was already likely with her being an e-thought and potentially even cheating on him. But this just compounds those issues. But, you know, anyways, though, the reaction from his community, though, has been extremely strong. Oh, yeah, I had this. This is a clip of Fauna talking about ProtonJon. Because, yeah, like I said, ProtonJon, pretty famous, you know, pretty well known back in the day. But anyways, though, here it is. So this is all, like, his community is just super pro-LGBT, full of trannies. So it's been like a massive hug box. That's just his stream schedule, but yeah, so they have all this fan art. This is one thing I found weird. Rosalina is a loving mother who says trans rights. I find this meme so goofy about how, like, liberals will take any character and be like, oh, they say trans rights. Like, oh, Rosalina says trans rights. Can I get a source on that? Where's the sauce? But anyways, though, like, look, by this logic, I could also just say that Rosalina says Heil Hitler, and it's pretty much just as valid. But Anyways, though, like I said, the community is very positive. ProtonJon just in general has a very lefty community. Honestly, I feel like the entire old like YouTube Let's Player sphere is kind of is mega gay. I think Chuga and NCS kind of dodged it a bit, but ProtonJon's community was pretty toxic, pretty freaking gay. But anyways, though, let's talk about the history. I feel like this all started with Rosa John. So here it is. On February 3rd, Jumley posted a drawing of John dressed as Rosalina during a Twitter art block on stream, to which John said not busty enough. So I think this was in response to John playing as Rosalina in like Mario Party or something. And over time, this developed. You see here from 2020, it's like a meme. There's more fan art. This is really weird. Someone gave him a bra during a Secret Santa, which I feel like proves that this community he was in was kind of deranged. And you really could tell it was over when he started cosplaying as Rosalina. I mean, look at this. And he was also doing all this other stuff like painting his nails. And he dressed up as Carmen Sandiego. And he even had a VTuber model made. Now, look, some of this stuff in isolation isn't so bad. Like, the VTuber model is probably the least sus thing here. And yeah, here's a video of him dressed up as fucking hell. Yeah. It was obvious that he was gonna troon out eventually when he was pulling shit like this. There's just no context that makes this kind of behavior acceptable. Simple as, and oh yeah, here. The resemblance is uncanny, don't you think? Here. This might be even closer. Yeah, the resemblance is uncanny. But anyways, though, so this escalates to him eventually turning out. And this is normally how it goes. You know, I guarantee you, I don't know that much about John, but I guarantee you he was probably, he seemed like he was the same as all these other troons, you know? Because they all have, it's all a pretty similar kind of guy that does this. Like, there's this meme, you know, over here. Nerd community is devastated by HRT like black neighborhoods and crack in the 80s. Sad to watch. Because all these guys are like the same. It's normally like a nerd, you know, doesn't get the chicks, doesn't get the attention, falls into porn, becomes addicted to porn, develops autogynephilia, then troons out, you know? And this can describe a lot of guys. Like, Chris Chan is almost the peak of this. He's like the quintessential, like, nerd to troon pipeline. He's even, like, mega autismo. Then there's, you know, Chris Tyson, who was just a mega gooner. He was a big gooner, which, you know, ties into it a lot. Like I said, there's the there's Jim Sterling, who's, you know, sure, similar story there. But anyways, though, there's a couple other stuff, and besides that, like I said, I'd have to look into it more. I wouldn't be surprised if his community groomed him into it a bit. You know, like, if he had a less toxic, more normal community, I wouldn't be surprised if it was, you know, I'm going to get rid of that, but I think I have this stuff over here, but, like, you would see this a lot. Like, you'd have this whole, like, egg meme. If you don't know about this, egg or egg mode is an internet and LGBTQ slang used to describe transgender individuals who do not realize they are a transgender person yet or in denial about being a transgender individual. Best compared to being in the closet. Like, look, these sorts of eggheads, they literally they're basically groomers. Like, they'll talk about, like, cracking eggs and stuff and talking about it all the time. Here's the same thing on Urban Dictionary. And you can sort of see quite a bit of this behavior in ProtonJon's community, you know, prior to all this happening. So I won't outright say he was groomed, but I mean, at the very least, I think he was pushed along. You know, if he had somebody reasonable talk to him about this, you know, I'm sure he could have, you know, worked out his issues. But, you know, he was egged on, you know, by these kinds of, you know, toxic, predatory, you know, LGBT people, right? But anyways, though, so... And it's ultimately unfortunate, though, because what's going to result from this is that this is going to result in even more grooming. Because now ProtonJon... I don't know, like, how young the, you know, the viewing age is for, you know, say, these YouTubers, right? These Let's Players. It's kind of hard to say. But, I mean, imagine you are a kid watching this kind of stuff, right? You know, young, impressionable kid. These are the types of people that are preyed upon. So anyways, though, we'll see. But one last thing I'm going to mention here is the Chuga Drama. So I think I had this here. This happened a while back. I never made a video about this. But yeah, so Chuga Conroy, who... Where the hell did I have his channel? Oh, no, I didn't have his channel. I had his Wikipedia page. So Chuga Conroy... He was also part of the Runaway Guys. He was a friend of ProtonJon. And this guy was a lot bigger. Like, he has a 1.25 million subscribers, 1.26 billion views. And he doesn't get mad views anymore, but he was basically like the biggest Let's Player ever for a while. You know, back in the early days at least. And effectively all this drama came out that he was doing some like erotic roleplay discussion with this feminist bread tuber named Lady Emily, and then she just went on Twitter and accused him of sexual harassment basically. And it all turned out to be BS because in these chats she clearly consented to them. But even still, it was a massive drama. It seemed like he was gonna get kicked. You know, his career was gonna get killed over it. And one thing I'll say is, even though Chuga didn't do anything wrong from like a legal perspective, I mean, look, honestly, doing like degenerate chatting is like wrong from a moral perspective. But he didn't do anything wrong, right? The whole thing is that you're gonna hang around someone like Lady Emily, you know, obviously she's gonna pull stuff like this, you know, but Chuga, you know, he's too much of a simp. He's never, you know, obviously play with fire, you're gonna get burned, you know what I mean? Sexed with a feminist bread tuber, you're gonna get falsely accused. That's how it goes. But anyways, this sort of ties into this because, yeah, this was interesting because when all this was happening, ProtonJon completely threw Chuga under the bus. As you can see, I won't go through all of this, but you can pause and read it if you want. But he basically says that he's cutting all ties with Chuga Conroy. He's going to kick him from the Runaway Guys channel and just going to continue on without him. Like, he was literally preparing to completely cut off Chuga Conroy. This nibba completely threw him under the bus. So honestly, John was always kind of a scumbag. And over false allegations, stuff that wasn't really that bad. And ultimately, they ended up getting back together, like the Runaway Guys. But I mean, still, I just wanted to bring this up, and it kind of relates because, like I said, Chuga did nothing wrong, but he definitely deserved what happened to him for being such a bonehead. But, you know, what can I say? Guy was raised by a freaking single mom, so... Look, he really would have helped him to get some red-pilled content. Even just a little bit, right? But anyways, though, that's about it for me. Let's see, let's go back here. Like I said, though, it's unfortunate because, you know, this guy is just one of many. I mean, these guys are getting groomed, you know, by porn, by, you know, LGBT people, by whoever, into this, you know, into this, not even just like degenerate, but this destructive lifestyle. You know, this guy's been on HRT, taking hormones, messing with his body for like 2 years, I think. And like, what's next? Is he gonna get surgery, cut off his dick, get a freaking axe wound in his crotch? You know, that's not a fate for anybody. And not to mention, you know, his community, it supports more of this behavior. All right, how many other... It just supports more of this behavior, encourages more of this behavior, you know? So we're going to get even more porn-addicted young men jumping on the freaking Troon train because they get groomed by Discord mods. And this guy, look, in a sense, he's honestly kind of a victim of it, but he's gonna become, you know, maybe even a perpetrator, but, you know, we'll see. But yeah, that's about it for me. All I gotta say is that, ProtonJon, you will never be a woman. Oh, by the way, always gotta remember to leave a dislike, but yeah, that's about it for me. Like if you enjoyed the video, you know, dislike if you're a freaking if you're a ProtonJon stan, I guess. Comment down below your thoughts, subscribe for more content. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye.